Hello and welcome to Dazzatron's Diorama Llama. And firstly, just before we begin this video, I just want to say a massive thank you to all those people who subscribe to this channel. At the recording of this video, I have 50 subscribers, which might not be a great amount compared to some YouTubers out there, but I'm just really humbled to know that people are tuning in and hopefully getting something from these tutorials, because that's what I'm making them for. It's really just to inspire you to be creative, to have a go and making these different stands, and to really show off your collectibles. So yeah, thank you again for tuning in. And so that's part of the reason why I'm making another Masters of the Universe video, just because I know quite a few people liked and subscribed to the last video I made, which was on Castle Grayskull. So yeah, so that's why I thought I'd have another go at a snake mountain stand this time. So as you can see here, I've got a 2-inch piece of styrofoam, but as you will have just seen, I showed you the stands that I made from the Castle Grayskull video, and they were using 1-inch styrofoam. So of course, if that's what you have available, you could easily just glue 2 pieces of that styrofoam together and of course make a much thicker piece like you see here. I use Gorilla Glue, and I'll be talking to you about that a little bit later in the video. So to begin with, I've just kind of marked out roughly where this figure will stand, just so I've got an idea of the width of the figure. So I'm using Merman for my figure this week. And so I'm just trying to create a bit of a step or an indent where the character will fit. So just nice and gently move the electric foam cutter along, just kind of removing those raised areas. I don't want too much of an indent because this will be the top step, so it will be a 3-tier step if you like. And so now I'm just removing some of the edges, just kind of rounding those off a little bit more, but I will work back into those with a lot more detail using the knife a bit later on. So I'm just marking out roughly where the steps will be, again checking this against the figure. So I've kind of divided it up into thirds, and for this part I'm not using the foam cutter because it's very difficult to remove what I want to remove really with the foam cutter, so I'm having to revert to the good old floristry knife, and you can pick those up from Amazon and other places, obviously kind of floristry suppliers. And it's really important that the knife is sharp, so hence why you can see a knife sharpener there. So all I'm doing is cutting away the edges. So you can see I'm just cutting around the step and then kind of slicing through, just to create the deepest step first. So I'm going to push that knife right in there and just kind of keep going around until it starts to loosen really. Now you will notice the cut of that, it's not really smooth, it's really quite rough, but actually I think that adds a lot of character to the piece, so I don't mind that. Of course you could sand it down and really smooth it down if you wanted to, but again, I quite like it, so it really depends on preference. It's completely up to you. So I'm smoothing it a little bit, just making it a little bit flatter on the surface there, but I don't want to get rid of all that texture. And so I also want to just kind of add a bit of texture to that top level, as that was very smooth at the start. So I'm just using just some small files just to, again, just remove, I suppose, the debris, you know, and the bits of texture I don't need. But again, I don't want it completely smooth, and in fact, again, you can see I'm roughing up the top level there just to make it match with the other steps. So yeah, I'm quite happy with that. They all seem reasonably uniform. So I've just kind of tidied up my surface. And so now I'm going to work into the rock formations on either side of the steps. And again, it's really important that your knife is really sharp. And lots of people get a bit scared with kind of cutting away rock formations or don't know where to begin. And it really is a case of just going for it, because the more you cut away, the more you work into this, the more lifelike it looks or realistic it looks. So you can see I'm just kind of chipping away some of the edges, cutting at different angles. And although you can, this is really sped up, you can still see I'm just chipping away. I don't want anything looking uniform or too symmetrical. So it's literally just a case of cutting in at one angle, cutting in at another angle. And so you're just kind of creating these kind of areas of detail. And you can see already how that's starting to form and look more interesting. So I've now done the both sides, similar methods. Again, try not to make it too symmetrical. And I think the important thing with this is just to have a go. It's not be too intimidated by it. So the character there fits really well on the stand, so I'm happy with that. So the next bit to think about is to start to add in further details. So I'm going to look back at my reference material, as you can see here. So this is the Art of He-Man, but of course you could just Google Snake Mountain and you'll see lots of pictures. And I'm trying to create these kind of like snake fangs that you see kind of sticking up out of the mountain itself. So the next thing to do is just to take a scrap piece really of the thicker styrofoam, and I'm just going to divide that up into 4, and then I'm going to use the electric foam cutter just to cut that down. You could just use a regular saw, that would be absolutely fine. So I divided this up into 4 sections. Doesn't have to be really neat, because you're going to shape these to look like these kind of fangs. And all I've done for that is it's almost just like peeling an apple really. I'm just kind of peeling away the corners and just making sure it's tapered on the one side, so obviously we're working to a point. And you will find when you're using a floristry knife it does get quite blunt quite quickly as you're cutting into the styrofoam, so just to keep a sharp hand is really useful. Yeah, do be careful obviously when you're cutting towards yourself. Do stay safe so you don't end up cutting your fingers. And so you can see I'm just gradually removing more and more of the material until I'm happy with the shape. And I'm just using a bit of sandpaper just to kind of, so it doesn't look quite so angular, so it's a little bit smoother, as you can see in the resource material. So this is a little bit thick at the moment, so I just want to kind of thin that down a little bit more. And that's what you can see here. So it's a little bit thinner. And I'm just going to cut off the bottom and round that off so I can kind of push that into the surface of the base really. So I'm just kind of drawing around the edge just so I can see how much I need to cut out. And you can do this either with the electric foam cutter or with the knife, as you can see here. I'm just using another one of the files just to kind of create a bit of a deeper hole to push that into. You can see that works really well. And with this one I'll show you with the electric foam cutter. So you're using the rod tool. As you know, you have a wire tool and you have the rods if you own one of these. And if you don't, again, you can easily pick these up from Amazon or other suppliers. I'm not sponsored by Amazon, by the way. It's just a really easy place to get some of these resources. So you can see I've used the rod tool just to kind of again create a hole to be able to push this piece of material into. And yeah, It's taken me probably a good 40 minutes or so to cut and shape the rest of those and put them in place. And what you can see here is I'm using Gorilla Glue. So Gorilla Glue, sometimes it comes with gloves, and you do have to dampen one surface. So you keep the one part dry, but then you dampen the other area where you want to place the glue. So I'm just using a damp paper towel just to get some of that moisture into the hole there. And then with the fang, I'm just going to add the glue to that area. It's really important when you add Gorilla Glue, this particular type anyway, it does expand with moisture. So you don't need a lot on, because it will kind of ooze out after a while. And you can see a little bit of that there, just on the edge. Of course you can paint over that, so it's not a problem. So when it comes to the painting parts, after you've glued in all the parts that you need to, I'm just starting with black, just to fill in some of those kind of deeper recesses, so it kind of really shows up that texture. And then I'm using a dark grey just over the top, and I'm just keeping the brush reasonably flat, just so again it's showing that texture a little bit more. And I'm going to coat the whole thing with this dark grey first of all. As you can see, there's the finished piece. It does go a bit darker, as you can see there. And then I'm going to start to add the paint effects. Now, of course, looking at the resource material that you can see on the screen, you can see there's lots of purples and pinks from the original kind of snake mountain design and toy. So I'm going to mix between pinks, purples and blues to get the effect that I want, really. So I'm going to start with a darker purple. And you will need a bit of water, and a flat brush tends to work quite well. So a larger brush tends to help with this technique. So you're just taking a small amount of the paint, rubbing it off onto a rag or paper towel. Now I'm not really drying out the brush, and the only reason why I'm not doing that is because I want a good kind of surface coating of the purple. So you can just use a small amount, it depends on what you're doing really. So I've moved to the blue here, so I'm just adding a touch of the blue to the tips of the kind of the fangs. There you can just see how that's kind of creating this kind of gradation effect. And again, that's not as difficult as it seems. It's just by using the blue at the top and then going back to the purple and just kind of blending it in. You just get a feel for that as you do it. And so now we're moving to the pink, just to pick out some of the, again, the raised surfaces and kind of add those highlights. Now, because the pink that I'm using here is quite a watered down acrylic, so it's not a thick acrylic that I'm using. It doesn't coat as well as some of the thicker acrylics, so I'm going to give a few coats of this. So sometimes it's a good idea to let it dry and then just give it another coat, and then it will really kind of make those textures pop. And so that's pretty much it. So it's not, again, these videos, they're aimed at beginners, not aimed at, you know, people who've created dioramas for a long time. That's the whole idea, is to encourage everybody to have a go at making these. As long as you've got some of the basic equipment, like the styrofoam and a knife, a bit of glue, you could easily do this. And it looks pretty cool, and I think it just really makes that figure stand out. And of course you could use any figure on this that you wish to, and that's the nice thing, being able to kind of change them out and swap them out. So yeah, hope you've enjoyed this video, hope you have a go, do like and subscribe, and I'll see you again soon.